drone project. Today I did a little bit of Blender learning. Now, I found a video by Stan Humphries, I believe his name is, on YouTube, and he had a video explaining basically introduction onto Blender programming and getting it to work with SkyBrush. Now, the way this works is SkyBrush uses a little bit of a plugin inside of Blender, and you install it, and then you have more options in Blender than what Blender normally offers. And then what ends up being exported is a script that the Blender software can read, which is a separate piece of software. I believe it is called SkyBrush Viewer, which you can view to see the light show in whatever scenario you want. Basically just get a final review before actually sending out in the field when you have actual drones that could cause issues. Now, today I kind of learned a little bit in Blender. I didn't go through the whole video of Stan Humphries, but I learned enough to figure out. I've used Blender a couple times. I'm not super knowledgeable, but I know some of the basics of it. And if you see here, I've got Blender open. Basically, what I have here is a very simple scene. It's going to be just the drone itself, which is this orb here. Let me lower it real quick back to where it's supposed to be. Actually, first let me just get rid of this canvas, the map you see here. Very basic sense how it works. Let's see if I can actually move around without a mouse here. Is you have this little object here, and this is your drone. This represents your drone. And then up in this corner, you're going to have all of your, nope, not this one, apologies, this one. Here is where you do your main programming on the entire storyboard. So this is here, takeoff grid, so how you want them formed when they take off, before they take off, what path they're going to go into, so you can create shapes, and essentially really cool how SkyBrush Studio works, which is the plugin here, is you can map it to vertices. So if you have a shape you like, you simplify down the shape. In this case, for the example of the tutorial, he used a circle and he simplified the vertices, so there's points. And then basically with a little bit of math, you're able to figure out. You also have to make sure the distance properly, and you can do that with if you're creating basic shapes. I'm sure it might be easy enough also to do if you have imported 3D models or whatever. But essentially, you have your fleet on the ground, and you can tell the fleet to follow the shape or the vertices on a object. And for this example, I don't have more than one drone in here. I just have one drone, so I used Bezier curve. I was kind of hoping to get it, which I think is a multi-point line, and it can curve. Now, I removed the map earlier. Let me add that back. The map is going to be your location. So I don't think you necessarily need this. Now, I haven't gone through the whole tutorial, but this better plans out where you're going to do this, also where the audience is going to be facing, since that might be an issue. Obviously, you don't want to go in the opposite direction. And essentially, I believe this y-axis, the green line here, is going to be your front. This way, the way the arrow is pointing right there is going to be the front of, or the direction the light show is pointing. And then you see here, I grabbed a picture of a park not too far from the office in Cypress Avenue, and it has some little field here, and I was thinking of testing out in that field if possible. Also, what you need to do in Google Maps, at least is what I did, and he's recommend doing this in whatever program you use, is measure out a point. And you're going to measure out a point for accuracy, so when you scale this picture up, you have an accurate scaling of it. Now, I don't know if I've done this correctly, because the drone seems rather large. I believe this would be a lot smaller. I could have gotten one of these squares wrong. I could be using the wrong measurement units, because each you can configure what each box in this virtual plane here. You see the amount of boxes here. You can configure how big the spacing is. So in the video he had 1 meter, and I went with that, assuming this is 1 meter, I don't believe, per box. So this what I laid out here on Google Maps is a measurement from this point to this point, and that's going to be about 50 meters or so. 50 meters exactly, actually. I measured it out in Google Maps, and then you can size it up roughly to what the picture is going to be in the thing. So let me just show you the animation here. Now, I'm kind of going over this pretty quickly, but essentially you can program it. I wouldn't say program, you can animate it is more accurate, because it's using Blender's built-in animation tools. and you can have it configure how fast it goes up. So in this case, this is pretty fast, I believe. Also, you can figure out how high it goes. This is not at 3.2 meters. That's incorrect because when I made it, it was not at the center. Whatever the drone is at now, what is it at? It's at 9.9 meters, which is pretty high. It's what, like 30 feet or something, maybe 20 feet. Essentially, you can coordinate when the drone goes up. And let me see if I can get your boom, ba-doom, ba-doom. Move that over there. It's very similar to keyframing in Premiere Pro if you've ever done that. So you see here, I play the animation and the drone goes up. Now, I haven't even gotten to the lights part yet. I only went through half the video. The video is an hour long. It took me a while to get here, at least an hour to get to this point. But you can still coordinate all of this. And then storyboard here, you can add return to home, take off, return to home, or land. You can add your own custom shapes, which you have to do here. Formations, so you just import a shape, whatever you want, and then you can add a formation. To note, you cannot, if you don't make enough drones in here, it can't do a shape that has multiple vertices. I tried doing that, it did not work. So I've tried following the tutorial where he had a shape that had like 30 vertices because he was doing 30 drones in the example, and it says it couldn't process one drone for all 30 or whatever. You can have different points. If I added a multiple of these points, these Bezier curves around the room, and then I did an individual formation for each one, it'll go to all those points. I believe there's an easier way to do that than having to do it as a formation technically. I think you can probably manually move it. That's essentially how it works. And then whatever the center point is in Blender, that's going to be the formation wherever it's going to go. So you can add as many of these things here, I believe, of these drones, I should say. Which tool was it? Formations. Like create takeoff grid. There we go. Yeah, so create takeoff grid. You can create how many you want. So let's say you have a row 5 by 5. Let's see here, 5 by 5. You also set your spacing, how far apart you want these to be at all times, minimum spacing, and then also when you create the shape, you have to make sure that spacing stays consistent, but it should be able to warn you. You can turn off those warnings, but you can still set max velocities and all that kind of stuff for safety reasons. You can go OK, boom, you got a formation here. I believe this is supposed to be in the middle here. I think that's the center point. I'm not sure why they came over here. That's still to be figured out. Still a lot to learn. No, actually, I might be wrong. Yeah. Anyways, still a lot to learn, obviously, but that is Blender and SkyBrush. A little bit of Blender.